Welcome to the brand new episode of the OpEdia podcast, hosted by me, solomonokukuwafua. Those are my full names. And for those of you who are tuning in for the first time, wherever you are around the world or whatever time zone that you're in, either you're watching me right now or you're listening to me right now, I promise you this is something that is worth a listen, or that is worth to watch, because it's going to inform you, it's going to encourage you, it's going to empower you, it's going to inspire you, and last but not least, it's going to inform you and making sure that as your life moves on, those are the things that will change your perspective and be able to better your lives through the knowledge that I'm displaying on different platforms. So that's the purpose of the Opedia podcast. Oh, and by the way, this is personal opinion, just like the way you see on the newspapers. Then that is how I'm doing it, but through the podcast that I've just launched not long ago in the previous episodes. So for those of you who have been following me from day one, from the first episode till now, thank you so much. I can't take you for granted. Because of you, I love doing what I'm doing, and I know it's going to grow and grow, and making sure that it's going to get noticed everywhere across the world. And to those of you who are listening or are watching me for the first time, and make sure that as soon as this episode is done, below is going to show you the links, the social media handles, and also the podcast platforms where you can get the catalog or the archive of the previous episodes of this podcast, be able to know what I've been discussing and what I've been sharing, to make sure that you're well in tune to where it is headed to. But yeah, other than that, before I dwell into what I have to share today, I'm doing a special tribute to a family member of mine who passed away recently, and is my uncle from my mother's side. And this was a person who was down to earth. This is a person who was loving and caring for others, especially with his family and with his parents, and even to the siblings, despite the distance between people wherever they are around the world, because he was living in the Western world, whereas his other siblings were living in different places. But yeah, losing a person of such magnitude is really speechless for some of us, even though I knew him only through phone calls and not an eye to eye contact, because he was living very far. But through my mother, who of course is the sibling to my uncle, then she has been telling me a lot about him. And right now, even as the family prepares to give him a proper send off as he lays down 6 feet under, I just pray that he's going to be in God's hands, and I'm sure that all that he has done in this earth is worth a testimony, and is worth something to be kept as a memorial for generations to come, brother. So the episode is dedicated to him, and I hope that this episode will do justice. And yeah, so today the title will be called the Billionaire Status, whereby I'll be sharing with you on the ins and the D's. Now, if you're wondering what the ins and the D's is all about, of course, in is a word, but it's also abbreviations for what I'm going to fill in the blanks, as I'm going to share with you in a moment. And then the D's, of course, is the capital D. And because this episode is the 5th episode, then I'll be sharing with you the 5 ins and the 5 Ds. Now, the ins represents the ways of reaching the billionaire status, and then the Ds are the ways of losing that status at the same time. So that's what I'm going to be discussing, and also I'm going to give you an example of each of them, and I'll be giving you a brief background of what those acronyms or those abbreviations represent, be able to give you a better perspective on how to better your life. And I hope that by the end of this episode, it has given you a spark, it has given you a light bulb moment to act on it. And you never know, through consistency and hard work, then you're going to reach as far as Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, to be one of not just the richest people, but also the most powerful and even the most famous people to be spoken of. And that's why this podcast is there. It's not only just giving personal opinion, but at the same time, I'm enlightening, I'm empowering you and I to act on the content that is being displayed, and make sure that to make a difference, not just in your own life, but also to your family and to the community and to your friends, so that you make a better one, right? Thank you once again. For those who are regulars, you don't need to say much. Just thank you for being a part of this journey. I know it is just the beginning, but we have a long way to go. For those who are listening to me, who are watching me for the first time, thank you. I hope this will not be taken for granted. It will not be worth wasting your time, and I know this is something that will be life changing. So today the topic will be called the billionaire status. Now we all know what's the meaning of a billionaire. A billionaire is a person who has achieved a net worth of $1 billion and more through different sources of wealth. And then of course the billionaire status really takes time, but at the same time it has different methods. Now speaking of methods, that is where the 5 ins come in. Now if you know the word in, I bet sure that was in capital, and at the same time I'm going to be filling the blanks after those letters following each other. So 5 ins represents the 5 methods of reaching your way to the billionaire status, and I'll be giving you a brief background of what it's all about, and also I'll give you an example of a billionaire who reached that status through those methods, to be able to give an idea or a light bulb moment of knowing how to be a rich person. You may not be a billionaire, but you can be a multi-millionaire in dollar currency. So that's what I'm doing. And the first in is called invent. That's one method of reaching your way to the billionaire ranks. And of course, from the word event means create something new, something that was never done by any other person preceding you. And hopefully when you create something new, it's going to gain traction, and once it gains traction, it's going to create sales, and it's going to create profits, because we've created something new which is going to be better, or is going to be more efficient, or is going to be more not time consuming, but rather time efficient at the same time. So that's what the word event means. Of course, event means coming up with new things, new ways on how to live life, or new ways on how to do tasks, or new ways of communicating to others, and new ways of doing things the way people are used to do before, but using a new way. So that's what the word invent is all about. Now I'm sure all of you are all aware of people who made a net worth of $1 billion by inventing. Now you look at people like Bill Gates, who invented Microsoft alongside Paul Allen, rest in peace to him. He passed away a few years ago, who handpicked Bill Gates in college and be able to start Microsoft. And then you got Steve Jobs, who invented Apple. Even him, he passed on in 2011. You got people like Michael Dell, who started Dell Computers, and you've noticed that these billionaires, either dead or alive, have really impacted their generation and the generations that are after them. And I'm sure that this is something that you are maybe considering on a business idea. Then invent something. look at a problem, see what idea you can come up with, and create that new thing. And you never know how much traction is going to get, and you don't know how much sales you're going to receive from such an idea that you've created. Because the more problems that you see around you, the richer you become. So see something, create a new thing, and you'll see yourself making more money. So that's the first in, in capital letters, and it's invent. Now the second in is called innovate. Innovate means to change the way things are done normally and create a more efficient way of doing things. So that's what innovate means, and we have examples of billionaires who have done so. You look at Jeff Bezos with Amazon. You look at Elon Musk with Tesla. You look at many examples of that kind. People who innovated and making sure that they have revolutionized something new and reaching to where they are today. And you've seen someone like Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk. They're already neck to neck, head to toe for who's going to be the richest person in the world. And it's really interesting to see such a competition which has never been heard of. And both of them, by the way, if you go to the real-time rankings, we're going back to Forbes magazine, to the Forbes website, that it's minimum of $150 billion. Imagine $150 billion minimum for both of them. So it's really intense, but what they have done in the industries they represent is really life changing. It's really mind blowing, and I hope that has given you an eureka moment to really see what needs to be changed, what needs to be done afresh, what needs to be done anew, so that we don't be doing the same thing again and again, and it's going to be time consuming, and it's going to be making losses. So come up with a different method, so long as you don't forget the origins, so long as you don't forget the background of that product or of that service or of that process, because you need those things to be able to give you that creativity on how to make time efficient methods, to make better services, or to make better products than what it was before. So that's how the word innovate comes in, and that would be the second in that aspect. And then the third in is called invest. Yes. Now invest means to allocate a certain amount of resources to a particular organization or to a particular company in exchange for profits or sales or revenue, because you know that once you put your amount of resources into this thing, then it's going to generate revenue, it's going to generate sales with time, because you know that it is worth that value as you put your amount of resources into it. And of course, famous examples of billionaires who have reached $1 billion of net worth through the word invest is people like Warren Buffett, who of course is the greatest investor of all time. And if you look at his portfolio, if you look at his business career from the beginning until now, even though he's in his early 90s, I mean, it's just incredible. And he's the one behind Berkshire Hathaway, which was formerly a manufacturing company, only for Warren Buffett to buy it and transform it into an investment company. And he has invested in many companies along the way, from Coca-Cola to FedEx, even to Walt Disney and so forth. And you've seen it generate sales for him. Why? Because even most of these companies that he has put his money on are all publicly traded and are generating positive sales. The shares are really up to standard, or should I say positive, and it has given good reviews for investors. And for someone like Warren Buffett, I think that's the best example you can really look up to, and give you a better perspective on how to invest in different things, whether it is real estate, whether it is bonds, whether it is companies, whether it is even companies, and even the future of things. And you'll see yourself just sitting somewhere and just letting money talk to you, letting money do the work for you, because at the end of it all, we all want money to work for us and not us to work for money. So I hope you get that logic, and I hope you get inspired by it. And then the fourth in is called inherit. Now inherit happens in two ways. One could be the loss of a loved one, and your name is written on the will that you're going to take an amount of something from the deceased loved one to be able to now call it as your own, because you are basically from the same bloodline, you're from the same lineage, and you're from the same family tree. And then another way of earning $1 billion in net worth from the word inherit is through a divorce settlement. Now this one, depending on who you ask whether this is a very good way of being a billionaire, it is going to be mixed reactions depending on who you ask, but that's one way, another way of being a billionaire. Now famous examples of people who made $1 billion in net worth through inheritance is the Walton family. You look at the Rockefeller family before the last known family member to be the Forbes list passed on. You look at even couples like the Kroenke family. You look at even Bezos before they split, the ex-wife of Jeff called Mackenzie Scott, who is of course dropped the Bezos name and having those two names already. So she has united some of it from the divorce settlement, and right now she's focused more on philanthropy, and the same way as Bill Gates, who is no longer with Melinda, but Melinda continues to keep the Gates name. So she's also made money through the divorce settlement, which made her be a billionaire, and then starting also to do philanthropy. So those are the examples that I can give you, and I hope that will inspire you to really think about your children, your grandchildren, and great grandchildren, and making sure that you don't be selfish, because at the end of it all, we all have to die empty. Now dying empty means all that you possess should be given out. Like, it's no longer yours, it has to be continuous for generations to come, and hopefully it doesn't die out financially, and it doesn't die out physically, because you've earned it, you've worked hard for it, and you don't want it to just go all the way to the dust. It has to be given out, it has to be shared with those you love, so that they use it not only as a memorial, but something that will motivate them to really make things better, or make more money than what the loved one used to have before they passing on. So that's what is behind the word inherit. And then last but not least, from the in is called inaugurate. Now inaugurate means to formally swear in a person after an election, either through the public or through the board meeting. And a very famous example of those who became a billionaire through inauguration is people like Tim Cook, who is of course running Apple, the boss. You look at even the former CEO of Microsoft, Steve Ballmer, before he resigned. I'm sure he used to earn multi-millions of dollars in his net worth through leading Microsoft during his days. You look at people like Sheryl Sandberg. You look at Meg Whitman, who is of course in the conversation of being the ambassador, US ambassador to Kenya. That's something that she has really done through the company that she's leading. I believe it's a tech company. And for Sheryl Sandberg, she's also part of the board of Facebook, and until today she's still there at the helm. And look at Tim Cook running Apple ever since the passing on of Steve Jobs. He has really paid off, and that's how he was able to reach where he reached. And that's another way of being a billionaire, is through the word inaugurate. Inaugurate means to formally swear in and become the boss, become the CEO, become the president of a certain company which you did not create, which you did not start, but through your leadership and through the creativity and through the team that of course your subordinates, then that's how you become a billionaire. So that's for the word inaugurate, and those are the 5 methods of being a billionaire, and I'm sure those are the main ones. I don't know if you know any other method. If you know it, you know what to do. Comment, say something about it. And if you look at the 5 Ds, the 5 Ds means the 5 ways of losing the status. Now, the first one, of course, being the word death. That is the first D. Now, if a person passes away and he was a billionaire before, you are no longer on the list of the richest people, as the Forbes magazine always does, or even Bloomberg does theirs also. So if you pass on due to a number of reasons in one way or another, then you're no longer a billionaire. And add insult to injury, maybe there's no will so that somebody else inherits, then you're no longer a billionaire. That's how you lose the status. So that's the first D. And then number 2, the second D, is divorce. Divorce, of course, means the separation between a spouse for a number of factors, and if they didn't have a settlement, or maybe the settlement was not agreed upon, and maybe one spouse goes away with the financial resources and the other going away empty, then that is another way of losing that status as a billionaire. And then the third D is called disinherit. Now, disinherit means that you are blacklisted from the will by another family member for the reason that the family member has put. Yeah, so that's how you lose your status. Maybe before you inherited something from your loved one who passed on, and then another family member decides to blacklist you for whatever reason, and you're no longer a billionaire. So that's another way of losing that status, and I'm sure you don't want to be such a person who disinherits your siblings or your loved ones because maybe of hatred or of whatever history that is happening in between. And then, of course, the fourth one being disinvest or divest. Now, both of them somehow have similar meanings, but let me break it down in one sentence of what it's saying. Now, disinvest means to withdraw the amount of financial resources to a certain company through which the money is coming from a central authority, which of course which means the government. And the word divest means withdrawing your financial resource from a certain company due to financial losses. And if you see that method really is one of the main causes of many billionaires being dropped off the list, and that somehow has really hurt them hard. And I'm sure you will not want to end up in such a situation. So lesson from there is put the money at the right place, put the money at the right company which you know is worth the value, and you'll see yourself earning millions and billions of dollars in cash. And then last but not least, the final D is dissolve or defunct. Now, both of them, of course, are similar in meaning, that I'll break it down. Now, dissolve means that the company no longer ceases to exist, and at the same time, defunct also means that the company is no longer running, and that is something that will be very painful. Now, I'm sure most of you know, who have studied business studies in high school or in campus, you already know the list of companies that went bust due to a number of reasons. And for those of you who are thinking that your company or your venture or your startup will end up that route because maybe you have the wrong people, or maybe the money where you put it after a long time of investment is not working, and that is your fate, that should not be your story. look for the right people who will make sure that you don't lose that company or don't lose that startup, and you come back on your feet and you'll see yourself coming back to that exclusive group. Yeah, and so that's it for the OpEdia called the episode called the billionaire status, and I hope that has inspired you, someone motivated you on how to better your life in one way or another, and I can't wait to hear testimonies of people who are inspired by this message. But other than that, thank you for watching me or listening to me, and I hope that I get to see you in the next episode. But before the episode ends, make sure you comment. If you're watching me on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, click the bell button so that you get notified on what's next. And for those of you who are watching or listening to me through different platforms, either through social media or through the podcast platforms, make sure you follow and subscribe and even download so that you have it in memory and be able to hear what is being spoken of. Otherwise, I pray that you have a blessed day from wherever you are around the world.